Dear colleagues of the weekly Dartscast, there's only one man whose name can and should be on this very trophy. And that, of course, is my main man, Ko Stompe. It's not Ko Stompy, it's Ko Stompe.
As long as you know it,
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Dartscast. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me we have a special guest co-host. Burton DeWitt is away this week, and filling in we have Mr. WDF, the host of Inside the WDF, Andrew Sinclair. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on. I know I was obviously a fair way down the list of potential co-hosts after, the likes of Scalzi and others, but I'm delighted to make my debut as a co-host. Looking forward to it.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And before we get into the show, I was asking around the world of darts for some advice, this being the first time I've had you as a co-host, and listeners at home, they can guess who sent in these pieces of advice. We had practice your doubles and take your chances. We had take it as you find. So lots of advice there, but I'm sure you do a great job. And before we do get into the show, we should give you the floor for the Six Nations, which was held in Scotland over the weekend. The Netherlands winning the men's title, Ireland winning the women's title. We saw you doing updates on Twitter over the weekend. What were your main takeaways from the event?
I think, first off, I really enjoyed watching it and having it back on the calendar, because I touched on it on my podcast this week when I spoke to Lorraine Hyde. But when I spoke to Alan Suter a while ago, he said that the Six Nations was one of his favourite international competitions because the one leg on, one leg off format is sort of like the games you would have played in the pub where winner stays on. And I think the tournament it's very different. It feels very unique. And I think that uniqueness makes it enjoyable to watch. And also it's a challenge for the players, I think, because, okay, you're practicing on the floor, but to go onto the stage rather to play one leg and then come off again. Sometimes you play back to back, but more often than not, it's one leg on and then you're off again. It's quite hard to peak for what potentially is going to be 4 or 5 visits. So it's a thoroughly enjoyable watch. In terms of the action, though, I thought the Irish team, the women's Irish team, were very impressive. Obviously, their tournament didn't start in the most auspicious way with the incident against England, but came through to win. It was quite an emotional win for them. I thought the Dutch men were really strong, even though it was a completely fresh lineup for them. They looked really, really strong. And then England missed out on both titles, but showed real good strength in depth. And to be fair, we're not far away from either of them. They missed match starts in the women's final. And then in the men's lost 13-11. And realistically, some of those legs that they lost, they missed starts to win as well. So England are unlucky to have lost both of them, but it was a good standard across the weekend, I felt.
Yeah, it's good, the bits that I was able to catch over the weekend, and we've got lots to bring you on the show. We've got 3 guests coming on. We're going to be touching on the World Cup in a moment, but we should give a shout out. We did promise a shout out to anyone that would give a mention to the Ko Stompy Trophy on the broadcast. Sky, unfortunately, letting us down, but big shout out to the team in the Netherlands and Kurt Vesterman giving us that shout out, the Ko Stompy Trophy, and great to see Ko as part of the production and even bringing in his own trophy for that as well. So yeah, big shout out to you for doing that. Appreciate that. But let's get into the World Cup, and it was a fascinating final day. Australia making history. Simon Whitlock, Damon Heta winning the PDC World Cup for the first time for their country. How pivotal do you think this title could be for both Simon and Damon's careers going forward?
I think for Simon, it's an interesting one because he's 53 now. He's been in the PDC this spell anyway for 13 years. He's won on TV before. He's been a runner-up in TV finals before. So being in that position and winning on TV is something he's done before. So it's not necessarily, you can't assume necessarily, should I say, that it will have the same effect on him that it did for Johnny Clayton, who obviously won his first TV title and then catapulted onto a wonderful year last year. But it's a confidence thing. And you've seen from Simon in recent years, people go to write him off or say that, maybe he's starting to look a little bit past his best. And then one result or one tournament goes his way. And then suddenly there's a really strong run of form. We saw it in 2020 when the COVID cases meant that he snuck into a couple of the majors and then had really good runs in those majors and suddenly looked galvanised, looked fresh, and then had a really strong period and kept his ranking quite healthy. So I think emotionally, psychologically, it will probably be a big boost for him, but I don't know how much more we're going to see him win on TV. This might be a last hurrah, you don't know. I think for Damon, it's a little bit different because he's been tremendous on the floor. He's won Pro Tours before, but on TV, you've always felt that he's never quite shown his best. There have been a couple of quarterfinals. I know he got one at the Grand Slam and in the UK Open, but I've always felt that on TV, we've never seen, certainly while he's been a tour card holder, we've never seen the absolute best of Damon Heta. But now he's gone up there and he's won a big trophy. And importantly, he hit the winning double to win that trophy as well. It wasn't that, Simon won the deciding game or anything. He hit that double to win them the title. I think that will galvanise him. And I think at the next TV event, I think we're going to see a different Damon Heta and potentially one who's going to go quite deep and maybe even win something quite big.
Yeah, and I'll start off with Damon Heta. I spoke to him a few hours ago when we were recording this, and he was obviously in great spirits after the win at the weekend. And we'll come on to it in one of our listener questions later, that it is hard to believe that this is only his third year on the professional circuit, coming up to 3 years since he shocked the world, won that World Series in Brisbane and beat the likes of James Wade, Gary Anderson, Simon Whitlock, his future World Cup partner, Rob Crossett in the final, made the plunge, moved over to the UK. And this is really the first year we've seen Damon Heta have a full proper year on the professional circuit. 2020, we had the first 3 months, then the pandemic hits, he moves back to Australia for a few months and comes back. 2021, that was a bit stop-start as well. This year, though, there's been plenty of darts, and we're seeing as well that he's someone that, a bit like Simon Whitlock, just loves playing darts. Tonight he's playing in his local league in Ilkeston, I think, that he plays on a Tuesday night. So a couple of days after winning the biggest title of his career, he's playing darts at a local league. There's not many people that you could say at the highest level that would do that, and it just shows that the love for darts that he has. But yeah, I think you're right. We've not seen the best of him on TV yet, and he is someone that it looks like he is getting better and better with the more experience that he's getting on the stage, and particularly this year as well, the amount of semi-finals, quarterfinals that he's had on the European tour, and that's, I think, helped him as well. More of that stage time that he's not really had the last couple of years. So I think, yeah, winning the World Cup, he could be the one, I think, out of the two that maybe goes down that Johnny Clayton route after winning that title and starts to win more major titles. He looks like he has got the game to push on, and he's pushing towards the top 16. If he does go and win a major title, follow on from what Johnny Clayton did, he could be looking at the top 8 and maybe moving into that possibility of getting in the Premier League. So I think there's a lot of potential there with Damon Heta. And as you say, with Simon Whitlock, he is on the other side of his career, if you like. There's not many years left, you'd say, in his career at this top level, but he does keep proving people wrong, doesn't he? Just when it looks like he is going to keep that slide down the rankings, he does produce a result or two to keep him there. The World Cup, that's not going to go on his ranking, but getting to the final, that does put him in the Grand Slam, and that's an important event for him to qualify for because, as you say, 2020, it was the Simon Whitlock show, that the behind closed doors darts, some of the games that he produced. And I remember that game that he had with Michael van Gerwen at the Grand Slam, the 21-8, he's winning that game 16-15, and he actually beat Michael in the World Match Play, the World Grand Prix, the Grand Slam that year. He had such a good year on the TV, but before this World Cup, he wasn't in the Grand Slam. At the moment, he's not in the World Match Play or the World Grand Prix. So getting in the Grand Slam, that could really help him going forward and could help him stay in the seeds for Ali Pali and maybe just stop that slide, because as things stand, it did look like he was going to drop out that top 32. And we've seen before, once players drop out the 32, it is hard to push themselves back into that. So, yeah, it's a massive title for Simon Whitlock, 10 years on after we saw him miss those match darts with all the other players in that final. So for him to get the title, I think it'll mean a lot to him. It'll mean a lot to Damon Heta as well. But I think as far as career-wise goes, I think it's a step in a big direction for Damon Heta on what he could go on to achieve later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the note of it meaning a lot to both of them, of course, last year at the World Cup, I know I remember contributing to the preview on your website, saying that, realistically, the emotional choice to win the World Cup last year, that the team everyone should have been rooting for was Australia, because we'd only just lost Kyle Anderson, and you knew that Simon and Damon were playing with emotion and they're being driven by emotion. I think maybe last year there was maybe too much. There was too much of that. They wanted to win it for him and desire to achieve something and prove something because of the circumstances they were in. Whereas this year, they were a little bit more removed from Kyle's sad passing. And while they've obviously dedicated their win to him, and I know in the interviews they've done with the, online darts and others during the tournament, they were saying that, he's with us on the stage and we're dedicating everything we're doing to him. We're playing for him. But I think it was a lot less raw this time. So both of them were able to just go up there and play their best game. And then in the tight, crucial moments, they had that emotional kick to push them on. Whereas last year, I just think there was a bit too much expectation around them to achieve something quite big.
Definitely. And I think it would have been hard to top last year's World Cup and seeing John Henderson win it. But Simon Whitlock, Damon Heta, very much deserved winners. But what about our World Cup MVP? This is our question of the week on Twitter. We've put out 4 selections. You might decide to go with someone else, Andrew, but at the moment, our picks, we've put Simon Whitlock, Damon Heta, Team Australia. We've also put on there Gerwyn Price, Dirk van Dijvenbode, who had 2 of the big averages over the weekend. Who was your World Cup MVP?
Vitor Geronimo. No, in all seriousness, yeah, I was trying to think of who would be the most interesting pivot there. No, I think for me, you'd have to say Simon, because he won the singles against Sweden, Belgium, England and Wales. He won all 4 of his singles games during the weekend, played really, really well to win them as well. Consistent high averages, looked so composed up there, and obviously contributed massively in their doubles wins as well, because there are a couple of those fixtures where Damon didn't look as strong and they swapped the order around, and you could tell Simon was the one driving the team forward, and he was the one that was at his peak the whole way through. And that sort of carried them as a team over the line. So, yeah, for me, I would say it was Simon, but Dirk van Dijvenbode wasn't far off that, because I thought he played incredibly, incredibly well throughout the tournament.
It's looking pretty hard to go against Simon Whitlock. Even our listeners at the moment, we've got 67% going with Simon Whitlock, 25% going with Damon Heta, and Gerwyn Price, Dirk van Dijvenbode are pretty close, about 4 or 5% each. But yeah, like you say, Simon Whitlock was 7-1 for the weekend, just lost the one game, and that was the pairs where he had that match start, and it was the double 18 that cost him over the week, if you want to say that. He missed the double 18 for the 9 darter in the first round, and it was a double 18 he had to win the final 3-0 in a clean sweep. But of course, Damon Heta comes back and wins that final game. And yeah, I don't think you can look past Simon Whitlock to win all of his singles games and battle through a bit of adversity at times as well. There were some massive checkouts over the weekend. Some checkouts came out of nowhere that saved people in games. Kim Huybrechts, the 170 in the game against Belgium and against Simon Whitlock, and Whitlock comes back in that last leg and gets over the line, and him and Damon producing that 109 average in the pairs to beat Kim and Dimitri and get through to the semi-finals. And the semi-finals, beating James Wade 4-0 with a 103 average, beating Johnny Clayton in the singles as well. Yeah, it's pretty hard to look past Simon Whitlock for that. Damon Heta, though, 6 wins, 3 defeats. He lost a few of his singles games over the weekend, but he did produce some good stuff over the weekend as well. And to get the win, as you mentioned, the final game to beat Johnny Clayton, get Australia over the line, I think you'd put him in second spot for that one, like our listeners have. And then Gerwyn Price, what an average that was against Martin Schindler, 117, at the second highest we've seen a World Cup singles. Dipped off though, didn't he, in the final? He had an 80 average in his first game against Damon Heta in the final, and that really put them on the back foot, didn't it, to lose a game like that? And okay, they came back and won the pairs, kept it alive, but I think they just ran out of juice at the end for that one. And Dirk van Dijvenbode, he had some stunning moments at the weekend as well, a 110 average against Steve Lennon in the second round, the game against Brendan Dolan. And that was a pivotal game, I think, for the Netherlands in their bid to win the World Cup. Okay, it ended in the semi-finals, but he was 3-2 down against Brendan Dolan in that second singles. Brendan Dolan leaves 8 and Dirk takes out the 1-5-3 and then holds and wins in the decider. And if it went to the pairs, we could have been talking about Northern Ireland going to the semis and maybe going all the way, because I think it was quite open going into that final session. But yeah, can't argue with the listeners. Got to be Simon Whitlock for that MVP.
Dirk provided he provided another one of those iconic bits of advice, though, didn't he? Because after he hit that 153, when he got interviewed afterwards, he was like, "You just have to hit your doubles." And it was like, true. Yes, Dirk, that's exactly what we needed to know. It's almost like when Ross Montgomery imparted those gems as well.
Yeah, maybe we need to start a book of all the great darting advice that we've seen over the years. There's plenty to fill. Well, we're going to talk about the Pro Tours that took place last week as well, but let's get to our first guest on the show. He is one half of Australia's winning World Cup team from the weekend. Here's our chat with the Heat, Damon Heta. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one half of the newly crowned World Cup of Darts champions, Australia's number one, Damon Heta. Thanks for the time, Damon. How you doing?
Yeah, magic, mate. Absolute magic. Cheers for having us.
Well, it's still been less than 48 hours since you and Simon Whitlock made history for Australia and won the World Cup. I know you tweeted no words at the moment to describe what happened just after. Do you have any words now to describe what that moment was like?
I don't think I'll ever have the words. I think when people watch it, I think just my expressions throughout the whole tournament probably says it all.
Well, what have the last 2 days been like since lifting that trophy and coming back home? And I can imagine that the phone has been non-stop with messages. Are you still on a high from Sunday night? Just all the support. Yeah, my flight, like you said, my phone's been going mental, and like even still to now. And I've just been loving it all. Responding to everybody, and it feels unreal. But like, man, at the end of the day, it still didn't. The World Cup, deserves Australia's name on it, and finally got over the line. We last had you on our show just after you won that Players' Championship title a few months ago. Since then, you've been on a lot of deep runs. I think it was 5 semi-finals, a quarter-final between that title in Barnsley and the World Cup. How were you feeling about your form heading to Frankfurt?
Yeah, I think I've had a bit of a mixed bag at the Pro Tours just before then. Everything was feeling good, and then from one game to the next, it changed. So, I don't know. I think my head's obviously always in the game. And then I just speak to my wife, and she pretty much tells me how it is as well, mate. So that's probably my best coach, you could say.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there'll be a few players signing her up after the weekend, and you also had a 9-darter as well in one of the Players' Championship events. I think you said that was your first 9-darter in a game. Was it your first ever in a competitive game, or just at the PDC level?
Nah, first ever, mate. First ever. I've had that many cracks at it. I couldn't even count on my fingers and toes, and of how many times I've actually missed the double. And I've gone for it different ways as well, and I finally got it, and it wasn't. I just kept my cool in that game, because it wasn't about that. It was about the win at the end of the day. But happy to get over that hurdle as well.
Well, speaking of 9-darters, let's look at your and Simon's run to this World Cup title. It started out with that win against Lithuania, and Simon just missing that double 18 for the 9-darter in the pairs. How gutted were you not to see that double 18 go in and make history with that first pairs 9-darter on TV?
I think I'm not that gutted, because we did win, but it would have been. Yeah, it would have been aces to be the first people to do it at the World Cup in the pairs. They would have been absolutely crazy, just throwing 3 darts in one leg a game. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, the second round, we see Daniel Larsson take out that 1-3-2 with you sat on 28, win that decider in the singles, but you and Simon come through the pairs to book that spot in the quarterfinals, and for the first time we had all of the 8 seeds in that final day. What was it like turning up for that final day, seeing all of the big hitters still in the competition?
Yeah, I think obviously just getting through that game was just a big sense of relief, and not only relief, we did come off not feeling the winners. Like, even though we won, I don't think we appreciated the win as much as our performance, and that's why we had that little talk on the shuttle on the way back to the hotel about just switching things up and stuff like that. So, but to walk into that room and it's still all the seeds and stuff. Oh man, it was. I think we were talking about it backstage when we were all in there, going, "Man, there's some talent in this room."
It was definitely a hard day to get through, and you mentioned there switching the order between you and Simon on that final day. For our listeners, how does that process work, picking the order? Is there a deadline that you've got to tell the PDC who's going first, who's going second?
Yeah, so pretty much when you enter the venue, a good, I think it's about 3 hours before, something like that. You got to let the people know. Obviously, it's anonymous who you say goes first. Otherwise, and they say the captain gets to pick, but it wasn't really like that with us. It's always a team, you know what I mean, decisions and stuff like that. As we both had our heads in the same area of changing it up. It's funny enough, we both pretty much told it to each other, both thinking it at the same time. So glad we stuck to our guns and went for it.
Yeah, it turned out well, and let's look at that final day. Belgium in the quarterfinals, and despite 100 average from himself, Dimitri van der Berg gets the ball to win that first singles, and when Kim Huybrechts throws in that 170 against Simon Whitlock, what's going through your head backstage?
Oh man, that was backstage. I just sunk in, the feeling inside just sunk, and I was like, no. So I was like, you know what, Simon's playing. He played an absolute great whole tournament. I'm like, all right, if this is the time is now for him to kick in and show what he's made of. And sure enough, he stepped up to the plate. And I knew when we're going into that doubles, I have to, pick my game up. That whole Sunday, I had to pick my game up, and I knew it. And I was just keen for it, absolute keen. So, I'm glad I did turn up on a Sunday.
Yeah, we definitely saw that. Simon pulls out that strong leg in the decider, takes it to the pairs, and you and Simon produce one of the best pairs performances we've seen at the World Cup, that 109 average 4-0 win. How did you two then bring yourselves down after a game like that and refocus for that final session?
Yeah, I told him, I said, well, let's not keep celebrating too much, mate. We got bigger fish to fry. So it was, it was a bit hard, but I think I like riding on a high like that, so I sort of just kept myself pumped and in the moment, and I was back on the board within 5 minutes after it, thinking about the next game. So I sort of there's times like now to take it all in and rewatch and re-enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the semi-finals, you're up against England, Michael Smith in that first singles, and you punish him for busting that 72. You come back and win in a decider. How much belief did a result like that give you?
Yeah, it was that was huge. Obviously, it was huge for obviously to get that first game out the way, and then you know what I mean. It eases the pressure off Simon, puts the pressure on the number one seeds. You know what I mean. So they were the ones. You could say they were the ones that were probably going to go on to the final, and when they probably didn't have a thought in us actually getting through. But I just stuck in like I do, mate, and I'll take the fight to anyone, whether I'm 5-0 down or, 3-0 down. I'll keep fighting no matter what.
It's a great comeback, and Simon then whitewashes James Wade, and you're through to a first World Cup final, Australia's first for 10 years, and you couldn't have asked for a better start, beating Gerwyn Price 4-0, and Simon beating Johnny Clayton. It puts you 2 up with 3 to play. What are you and Simon saying to each other as you get ready to go back out for the pairs?
Yeah, just not to get ahead of ourselves, and just play like we've been playing, and boosting each other up, and just all that team camaraderie, and every shot, even a bad shot, coming back and just saying like, forget about it, that's it, let's kick on, it's our throw now, just put it to them. But Wales showed heart and spirit, and they fought back really hard, and you could see the determination was. You could sort of see the tables were turning at that moment in that doubles. But same again. It was a first to 3, and I just had to put my head on straight after that.
Almost pull off the 3-0, the whitewash. A dramatic game in the pairs. Simon missing that double 18 again in the pairs, and Wales save it to force that 4th game. And not long between that game and the game with you and Johnny. What was that time like between the pairs finishing and the break between playing Johnny? How hard was it to get that match start you guys had out of your head and go again?
Yeah, I didn't even dwell on that match start. as soon as I went backstage, I went straight and like just washed my hands and put some cold water on the back of my neck because it was a bit warm in there, and just sort of just felt like another fresh start to go again. I didn't dwell on it at all. I think at the start I just put my head down and just went for it and like not be so tense. I was really relaxed for some reason and felt that I was really hungry. That, you know what I mean? Like really hungry to win.
Yeah, we definitely saw that, and you do the double over the Welsh pair. You beat Johnny to clinch the title, and we saw the celebration after jumping up and down on the stage. Was that just all the emotions coming out at the moment hitting you that you are a World Cup champion?
Yeah, the thing is with these moments, you never know if they're going to happen again, or it's all about soaking it all in. I think it was Ron Harrington who was telling me about, you know, with moments like this, like he told me about back in Brisbane Masters, just take it all in and absorb it. Don't just brush it off, or because you never know when you're going to get moments like this again. And as soon as I won, I did kept my cool a bit there, and just, you know, respect to Johnny and shake hands and the markers and stuff, and then just sort of just realising, you know what, let's just enjoy it, and that's just how I felt, jumping around and just letting it all out. And I was absolutely stoked. And I wasn't just stoked for myself, I was stoked for, you know, Australian dart, Simon, how much heartbreaks he's had in these things, and especially for Kyle as well. So it was just well overjoyed.
Yeah, you mentioned Kyle. I know Simon mentioned Kyle Anderson on the interview on stage straight after, and you said before last year when you played the World Cup, it was like you were playing with Kyle that weekend. And with Simon, what does it mean to you to win this World Cup for Australia? And I'm sure with Kyle up there, he's smiling and watching on as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. I mean, last year was just a lot of emotions running high, and it was always, we're probably always going to battle through that no matter what, you know what I mean? And I think we still played well last year, but just unlucky. And then, this year we sort of, played with a bit of, a bit of free spirit. We were geeing each other up, having fun as well, and some serious moments. It felt like a up and down tournament myself, but Simon, I knew from the start. I said it before we even started in a few interviews about how Simon gets up for this World Cup and how he's just a beast in it. And it showed. It showed how the determination he has when he puts that green and gold on. He's a different animal. So maybe if he thinks like that in every game of darts, you know what I mean, he'd be right up there. That's for sure. Definitely.
Well, you'll soon be heading back to Australia for the World Series. The first time that we've had the World Series down under since 2019. It'll be the first time I think you've gone back home since 2020 when you went home right before the first lockdown. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it, mate. So it's been, well over 2.5 years. I'm definitely stoked hanging out for it. Yeah, just, I can't wait.
And we all remember what happened the last time the World Series was held in Australia, New Zealand, your breakthrough moment, winning the title in Brisbane. What memories come to mind when you think back to that title, and what kick-started this run to now being a World Cup champion?
Yeah, I just had a massive week of darts that week. That's all I remember, because I played in the Australian Open just before that as well and won that, and I thought that was a big step. And then to go the following week and then win the Brisbane Masters as well, like, oh man, all I knew I was just heading in the right direction. That just put me, like my mind was made up that I was coming to Q School well before all that happened, but it just cemented my position to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. Absolutely. The biggest moment I probably could remember is hitting like a 170 to leave 32, and on my 32nd birthday to hit 32 and win it. It was I couldn't ride it, mate.
Well, there must be a trait in the Australian players, because we know how much Simon loves playing darts. We often see him playing in local events, and like yourself, we know how much you love playing darts. We've spoke before, you play on a Tuesday night local league. We're talking on a Tuesday evening. Are you going to be playing in your local league tonight, or are you taking a night off?
Yeah, I'm going in, mate. I'm going in. I've just been at home for the last. As soon as I got home, I've got no at the moment because the missus back in Perth, and I've just been here, sort of celebrating by myself, doing the washing. So I wouldn't mind just going out and seeing everybody and just have a beverage or two. and a couple of games of darts.
Good times, and a few more events before the World Match Play this summer as well. It's going to be a busy second half of the year for you. You said to us last time the big goal was to crack the top 16 by the end of the year, but now that you've got this World Cup title, do the goals change for you? Are you looking for another major already?
Yeah, I think I think all the goals are still the same, mate. When it comes to these majors now, I'm not just gonna, I think I'll be a bit disheartened if I only get knocked out in the first round. I'm definitely going to be working really hard towards it all. You know what I mean? I know that it's definitely the schedule's so massively busy, but I'm thriving on it and I'm enjoying it, and I'm just all about darts. You know what I mean? So yeah, bring it all on.
And lastly, most importantly, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will want to know the answer. Of course, you both got a medal for winning the World Cup, but there was one trophy between you and Simon. How does that work? Who gets to keep the trophy?
Oh, it's all about respecting your elders. So he's got the trophy for the first 6 months, eh?
Well, Damon, it's a pleasure to chat to you so soon after the World Cup. Congratulations again to you and Simon on lifting the title, and we wish you all the best for the World Series coming up and everything else that's coming up this year as well.
Yeah, massive, mate. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again to Damon for joining us. Now onto the Pro Tours, which took place before the World Cup in Germany last week, and a new winner on the Pro Tour, Scott Williams, joining a short list of non-tour card holders to win a Players' Championship title. What have you made of Scott's breakthrough year so far?
I've been incredibly impressed with how well he's done. I think there's a different optic playing on the Pro Tour as a non-tour card holder, I think, because it's not that, if you're not a non-tour card holder playing in those events, it's hit and hope. That's definitely not the mentality. But I think there's a lot less pressure on you to perform because you're getting an opportunity, but you're not necessarily expected to win those games because you're not one of the 1-2-8. So I think there's an element of reduced pressure for those players. So you often see them playing their natural game more often than not because they can go up there and any wins they do get are a bonus and are beneficial experience for hopefully what most of them want to do, which is get on the Pro Tour for the first time or get back on the Pro Tour. Whereas if you're a tour card holder and you're a full-time pro and this is your main source of income, every time you go to a Pro Tour, there's the pressure on you that you have to win. You have to win at least one game to try and cover your costs. And then when you don't, that pressure then starts to build. And it can be really hard for players that go on long losing runs or don't pick up a lot of money over a 6-month stretch or a year on the Pro Tour. Whereas you saw it last year, Jim McEwen, he played on almost all of the Pro Tours and won his first game in an awful lot of them by the end of the year. And Scott's just come in this year, hit the ground running, and he's an incredibly naturally confident person and player. So I think he goes in that room and just thinks, well, I'm as good as anybody else here, and just goes up there and plays his natural game. And he's had good runs in the Pro Tours consistently. I think he picked up about 14K on the Order of Merit before his Pro Tour win, which is a pretty good going. And then, of course, went all the way, won the Pro Tour. Some games were really good. Some weren't as strong, but he did enough in every game to beat what was in front of him, which is all you can be asked to do, and won the final and won it well against Nathan Aspinall. So incredibly impressed. And I think it's going to be the first of many titles for him on the PDC Pro Tour.
It's interesting you bring up the point on pressure as well, because I was listening back. We're going to be chatting to Scott in a few days when we're recording this. And I was listening back to the chat we had just after he won those 2 Challenge Tour titles in January, 2 titles on the same day. Not many people have done that. And I asked him about Q School a few weeks earlier, and he said that going into Q School, he did feel the pressure. But when he went to the Challenge Tour a week or so later, he felt very relaxed. He didn't feel any pressure. And maybe that is the case for him playing on the Pro Tour this year. Okay, everyone calls the tour cards the golden tickets in the PDC, but he's probably got the silver ticket this year by what he's done on the Challenge Tour on that first weekend, winning those 2 titles, backing it up, winning another title a few months later, top of the Challenge Tour list. And he's got that first invite to all the Players' Championship events, and very unlikely that you see all 128 tour card holders enter a Players' Championship. So he is going to be in all the events, and we've seen him pretty much regularly on the Pro Tour. We've seen him on the Euro Tour as well, beat Peter Wright in one of those games as well. And okay, he's not blown everyone away. He's not throwing high 90s, low 100 averages every single game. The run that he had to that title last week, 4 of the 7 games, he averaged in the 80s. And if you'd have put that on a bit of paper and said, these are the averages he's going to play with today and he's going to win a title in the PDC at that high level, you might not have expected it. But as you point out there, he's took his chances when he had to, and he has produced a leg that's got him over the line in quite a few of those games. The game against Danny Baggish, he had a 13-darter to win it 6-4. And then the games against Johnny Clayton and Rob Cross, the established players, if you like, at that top level. Against Johnny Clayton, 11-darter in the decider to beat him 6-5. Rob Cross, the game's tight, he's 5-4 up, pulls out the 11-darter. So that shows you that he's got a bit of quality. He's got something about him. And we mentioned the Six Nations at the start. He did have the blind 180 on the stage as well. So confidence, he's definitely got plenty of that after winning this title. And he is top of the Challenge Tour. Might not need to finish top to get that tour card next year, because you look at where he's positioned at the moment. He's going to be in the Players' Championship finals. He's going to be in the World Championship, and it'll be very surprising if he's not in the top 64 come the end of the year. And then he's got all that prize money on his ranking to then push on into next year and maybe qualify for some more major events. But that is when the pressure is going to ramp up. That is when he will have a tour card. So it will be interesting to see how he copes with that pressure. But he's a player that's playing with a lot of freedom at the moment. He's playing in pretty much anything that he can play in, and that is a good position to be in this year. And we'll see if he can back it up next year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you were touching on before about this is the first sort of full year we've seen Damon Heta have on the Pro Tour. Scott hasn't been doing this a long time. I remember quite vividly, actually, when I recorded the preview podcast for the 2020 BDO World Championship, which seems an awfully long time ago now. Gary Stafford and I were breaking down the draw. And Scott Williams was playing a man you and I both know, Justin Thompson, in the first round. And at that point, Scott had barely started playing Super League. He'd only played a handful of Super League games. And he'd come through that Super League system. He'd won one of the places at the qualifier after, I think it was the World Masters, to qualify for the World Championship. But he'd never played in a BDO event before. He wasn't necessarily playing county at the time. So there wasn't an awful lot known about him. He was a real unknown. And Gary and I both said Justin's an experienced campaigner who's played there a lot before. Scott's never been there. He's relatively inexperienced. And you'd fancy Justin to win that one, possibly quite comfortably. And I remember posting that on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And I remember Scott listening to the podcast and then replying and getting really annoyed that we both written him off. Because he was like, you don't know what I'm capable of. You've never seen me play, which was perfectly true. He then played at that World Championships and played well in spells. But, you know, you and I both know Justin's a tough old boy and he's a grinder. And he ground that one out. It was a slow-paced game. It clearly didn't suit Scott, and Justin got the win. But you saw the ability was there. The raw ability was there with Scott, definitely. He then had the Isle of Man weekend in 2020 where he got to the Isle of Man Open final. And then I had him on the podcast after that. And he was, you know, very confident, thought it was going to be the first of many finals. And then, of course, we've been in these weird COVID times where the Challenge Tour bubbles, which suited some people, didn't suit others. Whereas this year, we've sort of been back to normal a little bit. And as you say, he had that brilliant first weekend on the Challenge Tour with the 2 wins, which is really hard to do, by the way. It's incredibly hard to win 2 of those, given the sheer number of people they have in the combined weekends. They're proper draining weekends. So to win 2 is an incredibly impressive achievement, and that's given him a head start for the whole year. But yeah, every time I see him playing well, I always think back to that Facebook comment about don't write me off. So on a personal note, I'm really pleased to see him having as much success as he is. And of course, as you mentioned, he's playing very well for England. And I would be very confident in thinking he'll be one of the 4 players picked to go to Valencia for the Europe Cup later this year for Team England as well.
Yeah, I think you spurred him on there to what he's done. And we'll bring Scott in a minute. But just before we do, let's have a little talk about the cut-off for the World Match Play. We've got 4 events left. We've got a Euro Tour next week. We've got 3 Players' Championships the week after. And at the moment, we've got 3 players set to make their Blackpool debuts. As things stand, Martin Schindler, Martin Lukeman, Madars Razma. What's your thoughts on those 3 potential debutants at the Winter Gardens next month?
I'm looking forward to seeing Martin Lukeman. I think he's. I really enjoyed the interview you did with him a little while ago on the podcast. He seems like a proper geezer, and a lot of fun. And he's been a lot of fun on the Euro tours. And I thought it was really interesting when he spoke to you and he said that, last year didn't go the way he wanted it to with COVID, and then he was ill and the blocks of the Pro Tours just weren't really for him. And then he packed his job in and has gone full time and is giving this a proper go. And you're seeing it pay off. And again, like you were saying with Scott, Martin isn't necessarily throwing 107 averages every game. There have been a couple of really big monster averages from him, but more often than not, it's a steady sort of 93, 94, 92, 96. And again, he's beating what's in front of him. How he'll fare with the heat of the Winter Gardens in a longer form opening round game, I don't know. But he's certainly a good character, and it'll be fun to see him on the TV. I've got an affinity with Schindler because I went to one of the Riley's qualifiers in Scotland while I was at university up there. And it's where I first met my friend Mark Barilli, who you saw at Lakeside, is a big fan of mine.
He is, yeah.
But I also, there were a load of boys there from one of the sort of areas in the borders of Scotland. And they came up to me and they were like, "You look exactly like Martin Schindler. You're the spitting image of Martin Schindler." And I spent most of the afternoon saying, I look nothing like Martin Schindler. We both have sort of chubby cheeks and quite round faces, but that doesn't mean we look the same. Now, if I could throw darts half as well as Martin could, I'd be very happy, and I certainly wouldn't be runner-up in the Darts Podcast World Championship next year.
You'd have beaten me if you'd have averaged half of what he averages, definitely.
But yeah, I think Martin's playing really well. And he's an interesting case in point because he was on the tour and he had all the promise in the world and never really followed through on it, then sort of dropped away and has now come back on the tour and he's playing better than he ever has and looks almost a totally different player. So big fan of his, and I think he could do really, really well if he gets I don't want to say the right opponent in the first round, but you know what I mean. If he runs into someone who's bang on in top form, I think if he got Michael Smith, maybe wouldn't necessarily get that first round breakthrough that he's looking for. But there are other players in that top 16 that you would think he's got a good chance of beating in a first round game. And then the last one, Madars Razma. Madars is an interesting one because he's had an up and down year so far. I know he's been struggling with injuries at various points, but I thought over the last few times I've seen him, he's looked really strong. And at the World Cup, I was really impressed. I thought Latvia pushed England very close, and that was mostly because of how well Madars played. And if he can find that form and find the top level that he's capable of, again, like Martin, I could see him picking up a win in that first round and causing an upset against somebody.
I'll start off with Martin Schindler, who out of the 3, you'd say he can book his Blackpool B&B. He's going to be at the World Match Play. He is mathematically certain now he is going to be in the Winter Gardens playing on that stage next month. And as you say, he's someone that dropped off the tour at the end of 2020, won back his tour card in impressive fashion at Q-School at the start of 2021. And what a year he had last year, picked up 45.5 grand, and we're not even halfway through this year and he's already beaten that. So that just goes to show how he's had a good first year on the tour with his tour card, his new tour card, and he's kicked on even more this year. And he is someone that is really starting to make some strides. He's in the top 50 in the world at the moment. You'd expect him to be in and around the top 32 come the end of the year because he is going to be in a lot of the major events for the second half of this year. And yeah, fair play to him. He's someone that has had that disappointment of losing his tour card, and he's rebounded. He's got it back, and he's put everything, those previous years, the disappointments behind him, and he's found a new lease of life on the tour this year and last year. So looking forward to seeing Martin on that stage. The other Martin Lukeman, I think if you'd have said at the start of this year, Martin Lukeman's going to be in the World Match Play, I think you'd have had a few funny looks, and I think he'd have probably said that as well, given the fact that his first year with a tour card last year, he banked less than 10 grand. And this year, he's banked nearly 40 grand already. So it's an impressive turnaround, probably one of the most impressive turnarounds that we've seen from a player that's maybe had a disappointing first year with a tour card and a second year just blown it up. I mean, the run to the final of the Euro Tour, he's had some other runs on the floor the last few weeks as well. I think he's had 3 last 16s and a quarter-final in his last 5 Players' Championships. So he's backed up that run on the Euro Tour with those runs. And as you say, we had a chat with him a few months ago, one of my favourite chats I've had this year, definitely. And he quit his job at the start of this year. He decided, I'm really going to give the darts a go this year and see what I can do. And every credit to him. You've got to applaud the commitment, because after the first year that he had last year, it would have been a big gamble to decide, I'm going to go fully committed on the darts this year. I'm going to quit my job, but it's paid off for him and he's looking pretty good for the World Match Play. And the other one, Madars Razma, I think he's still got a little bit of work to do, because we have got the Euro Tour, we have got the 3 Players Championships, but he's got around a £4,000 lead at the moment. So he's looking good, but he is someone that has been close to getting in the World Match Play in the past. He's been in similar positions before, and he'll know that the pressures that come with these next few weeks in trying to get it over the line. And it would be a big moment for him, a big moment for darts in Latvia, the first Latvian to get to the World Match Play. It is one of the hardest tournaments to qualify, being only 32 players to the top 16, the next top 16 on the Pro Tour. So for Madars to get in there would be a big stepping stone for him. And again, he's someone that is in that top 40, top 50 in the world. And the next step is the top 32. It is a big leap to get into that top 32. But if he qualifies for all the majors, then that really does help. And if he can pick up a few wins in them as well, he's someone that could be looking towards that top 32 come the end of the year as well.
For sure. But as you say, he does have a little bit of work to do to ensure he keeps that place, because the guys just outside of that cut-off, Ricky Evans, he had a bit of a slump towards the end of last year. The World Championship started this year. But over the last couple of months, he seems to have found his mojo again. And, you know, the speed Ricky plays, you have to accept the rough with the smooth. You're either going to get great grouping and a 140 or great grouping and a 60. And I think if Ricky's playing well, then, you know, in the events that are coming up, he might pick up a fair bit of money. Keane Barry, he's had a decent year as well. And of course, the man we were talking about not so long ago, Scott Williams, he's within striking range. And if he keeps playing the way he is and keeps beating what's in front of him, it's not outside the realm of possibility that he qualifies for that World Match Play, which would be an incredible story in and of itself.
Scott, he is in the Euro Tour next week. He is going to be in those 3 Players Championship events. He is the latest winner of a Players Championship. Here's our chat with the newest winner on the Pro Tour, Scott Williams. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the newest winner on the Pro Tour, Scott Williams. Thanks for the time, Scott. How you doing?
Excellent, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking.
Good to hear. And there is only one place to start. That is with last week in Germany. A little over a week now since you won Players Championship 17, your first Pro Tour title. I know you've been away playing at the weekend as well, but has it fully sunk in now what you achieved in Niedenhausen?
It has now. Obviously, I had a lot of people on social media, and a lot of it took a day or so just to get through the messages and the thank you, the well dones, and getting back to obviously as many people as I could. But now, yes, it's all sunk in, and honestly, it's gone, and I'm ready for the next one.
Well, let's rewind to when we last spoke to you, and that was just after you won those 2 titles on the first day of the Challenge Tour in January. And as we know, it opened up a lot of doors for you. After that weekend, did you have to sit down and map out how your schedule was going to work, because suddenly the diary filled up a lot more?
Yeah, chat with the manager and just generally looking at what was going to happen, especially for the next 3 or 4 months after the Challenge Tour. It was pretty simple what I was going to do. I had to put the Challenge Tour first because there was a clash of Challenge Tour and Pro Tour a couple of months in. But I think that is now changing. I think I'm not sure what I need to take priority over now. That's the tough thing to choose now. So obviously I'm going to go into the next one. Hopefully, just go for it. And the aim is now the match play, because that's in 3 weeks' time, and there's 5 events to go. So I could potentially do it, and so that's what I've got my eyes set on now.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. And I think it was only 2 weeks between that first Challenge Tour weekend and the first lot of Pro Tours, which you got that call up for. You've obviously played in Pro Tours before, but how did you approach it this time round, knowing that these would probably be the first of many that you'd be playing in this year?
Yeah, I just felt really lucky to be there, especially after Q School that was not successful at all. And then obviously a week later, the Challenge Tours back to back. It feels incredible to be able to do that. But yeah, going into the first lot of Pro Tours, like I do most of my time anyway, I enjoyed it. And you just don't expect to be there, and then you just get on with what's in front of you, regardless of the reasonings for you being there or how you got there. You just get on with it, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah, it looked like you enjoyed it. Looking at those first lot of Pro Tours, the first 8, you had 2 last 16s, a quarter final, plenty of scalps in there as well. Dimitri van den Berg, Dale Gurney, Ryan Searle, to name a few. How pleased were you with that return?
Yeah, it feels great. And it just proves just them results that you're saying there, and that was before I actually started playing well. That I just probably deserve to be there, and my darts are showing it, and I'm going to just. Obviously, I want to be there at the end of the year, and now my chances are even higher of getting my tour card, whether it is via the Challenge Tour or whether it is in the top 64, the Order of Merit. But it was always the aim to get there, and I'm not far away now.
You mentioned earlier as well the second Challenge Tour weekend that took priority over the Pro Tour, and it turned out pretty well, winning the first title of the weekend, a key 180 in the decider in the final with Scott Marsh helps you get over the line. Did that take the pressure off for the rest of the weekend, knowing that you had that title in the bag?
Yeah, it does. It would have done anyway. But then you have players like Stephen Burton and Danny Van Tripp that start picking up wins, and obviously, even though I am still 2,300 ahead like I was before I started, that weekend, it's not a lot in comparison to how many events are still to go. So the win's always good, but I've got to start picking up money when I'm not winning as well. I seem to flail out in the last 64 or the 128, which isn't good enough if I don't win. So I need to start picking bits of money up just to add on to what I've already got.
And another tour that we've seen you on this year is, of course, the Euro Tour. You had that win over Peter Wright in Leverkusen. You came through a decider with Adam Gavlas in the first round before that. What was that experience like, going up on stage, playing against the world number one with that big crowd as well?
Oh, it's incredible. Probably I would say, even though I obviously I won back-to-back Challenge Tours, I won a Pro Tour with it. I think playing on stage against Peter is probably my favourite thing in darts so far. Just being involved in just seeing his iconic walk on from 6 feet away instead of seeing it on the TV or 100 metres away in the crowd, and just enjoying it regardless of the wind, regardless of everyone hearing everyone's name, chanting Peter. I was at the edge of the stage chanting Peter's name mid game. That's how much I enjoyed it. So I'm hoping. I'm obviously Trier this next week. I'm in Trier next week in the Euro Tour. I'd love to play Peter again and hopefully beat him again. I've obviously got to get through the first round first.
Yeah, we see that you enjoy yourself on the stage. Were you tempted to join in with Peter on the dance moves?
So tempted. So tempted. I was going to say something before we played, but no, there will be a time when I do it. But if we play each other again on stage, but honestly, it was just with people not really knowing who you are. You don't want to try and take the mickey a little bit and try and people say I'm probably too big for my boots at the minute anyway, but you don't want to get too much involved when you're there to do a job. So as enjoyable as it was, I was still there to do a job, and it wasn't fantastic, but I got the job done.
That's fair enough. Well, plenty more people know your name after last week in the title in Germany, and let's get on to last week, those 2 Players' Championships. You played well in the first one, losing with a 95 average in the first round, but going into those 2 events, did you feel like a title or a run like that was on the cards?
not so much. I think definitely looking back over the season on the Pro Tour, there's been one or two opportunities that I feel were probably better. The runs in the competitions were better. There was one where I think it was 4-1 or 4-2 up against Connor Scott and ended up losing that 6-4 and missing doubles. And I think that day, if I'd have beat him and got through Keane, then I would have felt like that was probably my opportunity. But obviously, like most people do when you're playing, you have a quick look at your board, see who's on your board, you see Johnny's name, and you kind of go, oh, here we go. Okay, that's the kind of name I've got to get past to do anything today.
Me and my guest co-host on the show this week, Andrew Sinclair, we were talking about your run to the title, and I mentioned the quality legs that you were producing at times to close out games, the 11 darters to beat Johnny Clayton and Rob Cross. How much confidence does it give you when you're able to throw a leg like that at the crunch moments?
It's excellent. It's really good, but at the same time, you kind of go, why can't I do that all the time? Why can't you do that all the time? Why are you putting in these sloppy 18 dart legs? And I obviously I say sloppy as well as all the other guys on the tour, because 18 darts is not what you're looking for, is it? 15 or below. But when you put in 18 darts in, and then you're starting to miss darts at doubles, and you start going, oh, why can't I just do these 11 darters all the time? It'd make life so much easier.
Yeah, we'd definitely all love to do that. And after winning the title, you mentioned about Rob Cross and his manager Rab Bain. They've helped you this year. You had the win over Rob in the quarterfinals. How much of a help have those two been for you while you've been playing on the tour?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that. Well, Rob, not so much the last couple of months, because he's been not ridiculously busy with. Well, we both have. Obviously, I've been about as well the Challenge Tour and Pro Tour. He's been away for exhibitions as well as Euro Tours. Euro Tour's been mental for months and months. So we've not managed to get a good practice in since the beginning of the year. But Rab himself has been fantastic to me. He always looks after me. He only lives in the next village over as well, so it makes it easier for me to go places, and he's always there. If I need something, I need to speak to anyone, he's always there, and the bloke's got so much confidence in me. The last thing he said before I went on the board is, you're the best player in that room, go and prove it. And that's what I tried to do.
Well, you definitely did that after beating Rob in the quarterfinals. You beat Chris Dobie, then Nathan Aspinall to win the title. You become only the third non-tour card holder to win a Players' Championship. Do you know who the other two were before you?
Yeah, Christoph and Mr. Mernon, I think.
Very good. And when that winning double goes in to beat Nathan, what was that moment like? Did it take some time to realise what you'd just done? Honestly, obviously, a lot of people have asked me the same question over the last week. It must feel fantastic, in the double is good, but you kind of don't realise what you've just done. To me, going into that game was just to win the game. Not bothered about the money, not bothered about a title. It's like you've got a player in front of you, you beat them. It's as simple as that. And I was really frustrated actually when the double finally went in, because I'd missed. I think I missed 5 or 6 match darts prior to that, and it was more of a relief. It's like you do finally go in that dart, and it has to be double 2 as well. What a crappy double! Well, even before the title, you were looking in a good position for Ali Pali, but winning the title, that should see you safe for that World Championship in December. And it's given you, as you mentioned, a real shot at qualifying for some of the other major events, maybe even getting in the top 64 come the end of the year. Have you had a chance to see where this title's put you in those races?
Yeah, I've had a quick look on the old websites and bits and bobs. Obviously, they keep all this information, and but obviously it's nice to look at them, but there is still a long way to go. I think it's still 10 Players Championships to go, or thereabouts. 11 and there's 11 Players Championships to go, as well as European Championships, which I'm only in 2, and you've got some professionals that are above me that are in a couple of the Euro Tour. So all it takes is for one or 2 good weekends and picking money up here and there just to keep plodding along, and that's what I'm going to try and do. Just not worry about winning the money too much and getting the points. It's just winning the games.
Well, we've gone this far without mentioning your best achievement from last week, and that's the blind 180 while playing for England in the Six Nations at the weekend. Is that the first time you've done that in a game?
No, I did it against Adam Gavlas on the Euro Tour.
It's more of a trademark for you then?
Yeah, it's just I'm pretty like Chris Murphy and the commentary team like to call me like a showman, and that's what it is. I mean, I love darts, and people love watching darts, and it's an entertainment. You're there to entertain people, and if it's going to go in, it's going to go in. So I just do it. I like to have a bit of fun up there. Not many people are a big fan of the fun, but I like to call fun. But it's we're living in the days of social media and the presence of that. And people, and like I said in an interview with Dan Dawson, like I want people to know who I am now, anyway, and I want them to see what I can do and how I do it. And as much as tempting as it was on PDC TV to chuck in some blind 180s against Nathan and Chris and Johnny, I had to refrain from myself from doing it.
Is that something then that you go into a particular game or a tournament thinking, I fancy doing that today, or is it something that's just a spur at the moment thing in the game?
It's usually a spur of a moment thing. Like you know yourself, if you're playing and the two darts sit up in the treble 20. If you hit many treble 20s, I'm not the same as you, but if you hit two treble 20s and they sit there, they're not just going to do it. The online live league, I had 105 left. I went ball 5 and I went for the bullseye again, just because of the line and the lay of the first dart. It was perfect, so I had to go for it. I didn't hit it; it ricocheted and went into 25. But that's how I think in a game: is if it's going to be hit, if it looks like it's going to be hit, it's going to be hit.
Fair play. Well, whenever I get two treble 20s, the third one usually ends up in the treble 12. So, not as good. But I mentioned the Six Nations, England just missing out on the men's and the women's titles at the weekend. But what was it like for you putting on that England shirt representing your country?
Oh, it's one of these, the accolade, it feels incredible when you do it. It was actually one of my goals for this year, was to be picked for England. And then I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go at the beginning of the year, because I'd set the highest average of the UKDA of the season, and I was sitting pretty nice in the rankings, and then I dropped because I missed a couple of games due to PDC stuff. So I wasn't quite sure if I was going to get picked or not, but all the chairmans and selectors and all these people spoke to me and told me that I was probably going to get picked and whether I was available. But just to play for your country, regardless of codes and stuff like that, it's just incredible.
Great achievement. And I think you touched on it in your interview with Dan after winning the Players' Championship title, juggling work and the darts. You've had a lot of time away playing this year. What is the situation now with your work? Are you focused solely on the darts now? How does it work?
It's just the darts. I gave up my job last year because we have a small child. We have a 1-year-old daughter as well. Well, we have 2 children, but we have a 1-year-old. One's in school, and it's genuinely easier and cheaper for me to just stay at home and play darts than to pay all the fees for the nurseries and stuff like that. So so my sole thing's been darts for the last 18 months, with a lot of live league last year, and obviously this year a lot of PDC stuff. So being really grateful to the wife and the grandparents for looking after the children when I'm away or we're away, and it's just been a crazy year, let alone the last 6 months.
Well, it's going well, and when we last spoke, we mentioned your nickname Shaggy. You said you weren't a fan of the nickname, it came from work. Are you going to stick with Shaggy, or maybe you might go with the show Chris Murphy said?
Well, yeah, someone asked me this last night as well. I don't, I'm not as a nickname, but people know me as Shaggy. It's my name around my local town. My football players, everyone who knows me as Shag or Shaggy or whatever. But I don't like it as a darts nickname. So that in the next year or so, I will be looking. Maybe the showman. The showman could work. It's an option, but we'll see over the next 6 months, a year, see how things progress and see what comes to mind.
Fair enough. Well, and lastly, before we let you go, July, it looks busy with that Euro Tour. You've got 3 Players' Championships, the Challenge Tour, all on consecutive weekends, maybe even a World Match Play debut if you get enough results. Any events this weekend, or is it going to be a quiet one ahead of that stretch of events?
Quiet weekend with the wife. We're actually going to watch Green Day and Fall Out Boy in Huddersfield this weekend. It was a Valentine's gift for the wife. But I had to look through the calendar just to make sure that we had a free weekend so we could go watch. But yeah, busy in Trier. 4 Pro Tours now, not 3. They've added another one, and then the Challenge Tour or Match Play the week after. Hoping the Match Play, but there's still 2 or 3 weeks to go, so we'll see.
Well, I hope you have a great time this weekend. Congratulations again on the title last week. The England call-up as well, playing in the Six Nations, and we wish you all the best for the next few weeks and however the rest of the year goes as well.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks again to Scott for joining us. Now on to the Women's Series, the 3rd weekend of the Women's Series this weekend, the last before the cut-off for the first Women's World Match Play. How do you see the race playing out this weekend?
Well, I think it's going to be quite interesting because you and I were discussing this before we started recording, but the UKDA National League finals are this weekend. And I had a look at the entry list earlier, and I couldn't initially determine whether this was an entry list or a list of people who had qualified to play. But a bit of digging on the UKDA website says it's a list of entries. So I'm taking it from that means those players will not be playing in the Women's Series. Now, most of those are county players. They're players lower down in that Women's Series order of merit, or players who didn't play in the other ones, like Paula Jacklin, for example. But the 2 names that stood out to me as being registered for the UKDA weekend were Rhiannon Griffiths, who's 5th on that Women's Series Order of Merit, and Trina Gulliver, who's 6th and won one of the events during the last block. So it's a little odd that those 2 are missing it. I know they are big county players and playing for their county is important for them, but you would have thought that the opportunity to play on TV and play on that Winter Garden stage would have been important as well. Now, they might have entered both of them and have chosen to play PDC one. They might choose to play the UKDA one. I don't know, but that did certainly throw me off a little bit. I'll put it that way. But in terms of the race panning out, I think the top 2, obviously Lisa Ashton and Fallon Sherrock, are mathematically qualified, essentially. Ryan Winstanley in 3rd, I think she's a fairly safe bet as well. She's been playing quite well recently, and you'd fancy her to get at least a couple of decent runs during the weekend. Same probably goes for Laura Turner in 4th. But I think those last couple of places, particularly if Rhiannon and Trina aren't playing, are very much up for grabs. I would fancy Robin Byrne and Katie Sheldon to go quite well. They're coming off the high of winning that Six Nations at the weekend just gone. And I think they're both sort of driven and motivated and playing really well. So I think both of them, a couple of decent runs during the weekend, they'll be in qualification places as well. I think Jo Locke's probably not far away. She's certainly got the game to get into one of those top 8 places. And then the other one, again, I don't know if she's going to be playing, but would be Rhiannon O'Sullivan, because she's been absolutely outstanding on the WDF Tour. Recently, of course, semi-finalist at the World Championships, Dutch Open finalist, got to the finals of the Six Nations singles, and then in the Six Nations team event, won all 9 legs that she played during the weekend. She's playing exceptionally well right now. And if she goes and a couple of draws fall her way, I would fancy her to make a real dent and pick up some really good money.
Yeah, and that's a great point you make there about the UKDA this weekend. You also mentioned to me off air as well, we've got the WDF events in Romania, which we're going to see Bo Greaves go to. So we're not going to see the reigning world champion make a last-ditch effort to get into this Women's World Match Play. And 4 events, the form that she's in at the moment, you would have fancied her maybe to go on a few deep runs and push herself into that top 8. But we're not going to see her do that this weekend. But of the players that we are going to see in this, and it does feel like a long time since the last Women's Series weekend. I think it's 7 or 8 weeks ago that we saw Trina Gulliver win that title, Laura Turner go back-to-back finals on the same day, and I think that's pretty fair that the top 4 at the moment, Lisa, Fallon, Lorraine and Laura, they're looking pretty set. I think they can, well, at least the top 3, I'd say, of those, they're booking their Blackpool B&B. They're looking forward to a day out at Pirates Bay on the Saturday and then playing on the Sunday afternoon at the Winter Gardens. But the rest of the spots, I think, yeah, they are pretty much open, aren't they? And you look at the list of players there. I was going to mention, like you just did, the 2 young Irish players, Robin Byrne and Katie Sheldon, the last Women's Series that we had, of course, that 1-2-2 checkout on the ball for Katie to beat Fallon Sherrock in the semi-finals 5-4, one of the checkouts of the year. She'll be brimming with confidence going into this weekend. Robin, she's made a final this year as well. I think they're definitely 2 players to watch out for. Jo Locke, a player very close to where I live, a former Stowmarket Open winner. She'll be in the mix as well. Mikuru Suzuki, she only played the first time, the second weekend. She missed the first weekend, but £950. If she can replicate that, you'd probably say that'll be enough to get in to the Women's World Match Play. That's if she's entered this weekend. Kirsty Hutchinson, of course, friend of the show, she'll be in the mix as well. Rhiannon O'Sullivan. I think there's a lot of names in there that are going to be pushing for those top 8 spots. And one player that we might not see on that first day, the Saturday, Fallon Sherrock. She's playing in the World Series in the Netherlands this weekend, which starts on Friday. If she wins her first round game, she'll be playing on the Saturday. So that's one of the big names that could potentially be missing on that Saturday before she comes back and plays on the Sunday. So not just the Women's World Match Play spots, but if Fallon is playing on Saturday in the Netherlands, you're looking at the likes of Lorraine and Laura, if they can go on a couple of big runs, close that gap on the Ali Pali spots. Of course, the top 2 qualify for the World Championship at the moment. It is quite a sizable gap between second and third and the rest of the field. So if Fallon isn't there on Saturday, that's an opportunity for those players to really close the gap. But yeah, I think it's plenty to play for. I think at least 4, maybe 5 spots to play for. And one of the players, she may be playing in the UKDA this weekend, but Jane Densley, someone that I don't think many of us have heard of before, but she's made her mark in this Women's Series so far this year. She is an unknown to a lot of people, but she's had 2 wins over Lorraine Winstanley. She's beaten Corrine Hammond. She's picked up a few scalps. She pushed Fallon Sherrock close in a semi-final as well. So yeah, maybe it would be nice. I know there's a lot of players that we do know in that list at the moment that are going or in the spots, but maybe one of the unknown players that we don't know too much about. Maybe we'll see a Jane Densley getting there as well.
But she's not on the UK entry list, the UKD entry list, so it's a very good chance she'll be playing and hopefully keeping up the form she's shown. And as you say, it's nice to get different faces in there because it certainly makes for more interesting interview guests for obviously yourself, myself. We're in that same predicament. Seeing the fresh faces is always nice to get different people to speak to.
Definitely is. And let's bring one of them in now. Here's our chat with one of the players that will be playing in the Women's Series this weekend, playing in it for the second time. They recently retained her Italian national title. Here's our chat with Aurora Fochesato. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the 2-time reigning Italian national champion, Aurora Fochesato. Thank you very much for the time, Aurora. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well.
We're talking just a few days before you make the trip to the UK to play in the latest PDC Women's Series weekend. How much are you looking forward to this weekend and the experience of testing yourself against the world's best again?
I'm very excited to participate in Women's Series again, and I can't wait to give my best in that competition.
And you're still only 16 years old, but you've certainly made your mark over the last year. But where did it all start for you in darts? Am I right in saying it was your dad that got you interested in playing?
Yes, my passion for this sport was born as a joke, but right now it's a beautiful joke. It all started 5 years ago when my mom signed me for a tournament in the European soft tournament when my dad was playing, and from there it all started. And year after year, my dad and I always played the double mixed together, until the last year that we arrived second.
Your dad, Dario, I was reading, he's won 15 national titles in Italy. Did you ever go and watch him play in tournaments as well?
Yeah, I really love to watch my dad playing. That sometimes makes me anxious, but I really like to see him play because it's beautiful. I don't know how to explain that, but I love it.
Well, for when you first started playing, where did you go from there? Did you play a lot at home, or were you playing in local events and leagues? What opportunities did you have to play when you first started playing?
After the Soft European, I started to play with a team near my home, and after that I participate to so many national competition with my team, but also alone. And I win a soft championship Italian, and after the became the first woman, not woman, but the first, the youngest, to win the Italian championship. I started to play still that.
And it was only this year we saw the first Italian play in a World Championship, Francesco Rischini, at the Lakeside, and we regularly see Italy in the PDC World Cup. What is the dart scene like in Italy at the moment?
The darts in Italy are considered as a minor sport, and only in recent years have many associations have been born that are giving confidence to young people. So the results will not be long in coming.
Well, let's get back to your darts. And November last year, we saw you play in the Malta Open, the ladies event. It was your first WDF senior event. What were your expectations going into that? Did you expect to get as far as the final?
Honestly, I went to Malta with only one expectation, which is to have fun. Even I'm still do not believe what I managed to do, and I'm very proud of what I do.
Yeah, what a run it was making the final. You just lost out a close game to Paula Jacqueline 5-4, just missing out on the title on your debut. But how much did you learn from the experience of playing in that event?
I learned one thing that I think is the best things that I can learn about it, and it was have fun, only have fun, because it can help you to do the best and to play with no fear, no nothing. So I think have fun and just smile is the one of the treasure that I make.
Not long after that, we then see you go on another big run, this time in the JDC World Championship, reaching the semi-finals, the first female to go that far in that event. How proud were you of that run?
I'm very proud about the JDC results, and I'm so glad that we now asked me to enter in our 360 team. And it was a really, really good experience that helped me to just kill my fear. And it's a little bit complicated, but I was really scared about playing that competition. But I have my team that just relaxed me, and well, it was a really, really good experience.
Yeah, it definitely was. And you mentioned their Team 360. Not long after that run, we see you sign up for their development program. What does it mean to have the support of one of dart's biggest manufacturers in Winmore and their team supporting you?
Yeah, I think they are amazing, and they help me for the training, they help me for the material. I really love it. I'm so grateful.
Well, let's get on to this year, and I've got to mention the 160 finish you had in the final of the International Youth Challenge in March. You went on to win that title as well. That must have felt good to throw a big checkout like that in the final.
Yes, I'm really proud about that. But when I was in here to throw the 160 finish, I don't have nothing in my head. I just take the dice and just go.
Well, before that, we did see you play with your dad and Roscoe in Scotland in the triples. I know you mentioned before you used to play a lot of pairs with your dad. So what's it like playing in a competition with your dad?
it was a really good experience, and I have fun, and I'm so glad to had participated to the Scotland Open because I meet a really good person, and I have fun, and I'm already proud of my final with Talita, my pairs, and I'm really proud at what I do.
Excellent. Well, at the end of April, we then see you make your debut in the PDC Women's Series, playing in 2 of the events. What was that experience like, playing in the Women's Series for the first time?
I was excited because I know that I can meet Fallon, Suzuki, Lisa, Ashton, and I was really anxious about that. But really, I'm in love with that because it was a really good experience, and I met Fallon, and it was one of the best days of my life, I think. And yes, I'm really happy to participate at that competition.
Yeah, you mentioned you got to meet Fallon that weekend, meet your idol. I've seen some people call you the Fallon Sherrock of youth darts. Have you ever heard that said before, and what does it mean to be compared to her?
I'm really happy that people call me the youngest Fallon, but I think it's beautiful, and I think it's beautiful, and there is no end. I love it.
Mentioned earlier Roscoe playing at Lakeside. We've seen you regularly on the WDF circuit this year. Is the Lakeside something that you're aiming to qualify for next year?
Yeah, the Lakeside is one of my objectives, and definitely I want to participate at Lakeside, and nobody can stop me.
Well, what's it been like travelling around Europe these last 6 months, playing in loads of different countries? A few weeks ago, you played the biggest open in darts, the Dutch Open. What was that experience like?
In those months, I visited many countries, and I really loved it. I really loved every single moment that I lived in those countries. And the last one, the Dutch Open, it was really good experience, and so with so many people, and it was a really good experience that I want to re-participate because I really like it, and obviously the place is beautiful. I really love it.
And away from the darts, are you still studying or now in work? How do you fit the darts in with everything else?
This is really complicated because I have school, I have to study, but in Italy, the darts in school is not a sport. It's a hobby or something, and my professor don't understand what I do and what I feel, but they think only about school. You have to study, you have to do those results, the exam, the test, and it's really complicated, but I can do it.
What are the long-term goals for you then in darts? Would you like to one day be a professional and darts be your job? What targets do you have?
Definitely. I definitely want to become a professionist because I really like to play darts. I love the emotion that it can do to me, and really I love it.
And lastly, back to the Women's Series this weekend. What are you most looking forward to about being back involved in the Women's Series again this weekend?
This weekend, I want to do the best, and I really want to do the best because I want to arrive at the third round because I know that I can do it, and I want to show that I can do better than the last time.
Well, Aurora, it's a pleasure to chat to you. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on everything you've achieved so far in the game, and we wish you all the best for this weekend at the Women's Series and all the other events that you'll be playing in this year.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you.
Thanks again to Aurora for joining us, and we'll finish up the show with some listener questions. Plenty of you getting in touch this week. We appreciate the questions. First one comes from Warren Allsworth. He says, what's the one change, only one, that you would make to improve the World Cup? And I think this part is to me, and renaming the trophy is not an acceptable answer.
Oh, see, I would just rename it. Like, that would have been the go-to thing for me to
Absolutely.
say. But Warren's put the kibosh on that now. I mean, Kurt even gave you the blessing with that beautiful video. He said, you know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, Co said that.
Yeah.
Your boy Co said that.
He did.
I will still never forget the fact that you didn't necessarily recognise Co in the Lakeside lobby. That was 1-0 to Inside the WDF, that one.
Well played.
I think, what change would I make? I think the easy thing to say is what gets said every year, which is that, it should just be all pairs. So I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is something, I think it was Carl Fletcher, posted this during the weekend, where he said he'd like to see the format of the final, where you have 2 singles games, a pairs game, and then 2 singles games, almost like they have it in the Davis Cup in tennis. It's the same format. He said that he'd like to see that format they use in the final at other points in the competition, so perhaps from the quarterfinals onwards. I'd certainly think there's enough TV time for that, because if you won the 2 singles and the pairs, and if you won the first 3 games, you won 3-0, wouldn't be that much different. So I think something like that, where every match is essentially the best of 5 games, would be good. Alternatively, make them play pairs first and then do singles afterwards, and make the singles longer than best of 7. Because I know it produces stonkingly high averages, but they never play that length of game anywhere else on the tour. So you would have thought that best of 11 with no break after 5 legs would be the way to go for the singles.
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of ideas floating around on social media over the weekend, as there is every year when the World Cup's on, and all pairs I think is one that's quite popular. The one that I was thinking of was the group stage, maybe for the first round, where you get all the nations, you get 4 nations in each group, so every nation gets at least 3 games, which I think would be good. And we've seen it as we've got you on, Andrew. The WDF this year, the World Masters, is switching to a group stage to start things off. So when you've got all the players coming from all corners of the globe to play in this event for a week or a weekend, they are getting more games, more game time than they would if they just played the 1 game. So maybe a group stage, all pairs. I know a lot of people are backing it, but for me, I'll probably go down a different route, and I think Kim Hybricks will be happy with this suggestion, given what he posted on Twitter at the weekend. But I'd like to see it moved around. I'd like to see it held in a different country every year. And as we have got the World Series back this year, we are seeing the PDC start to go into different markets. So for me, I'd like to see it go somewhere else, a bit like all the other World Cups, I guess, because the darts one, it seems to be in Germany every year. So maybe have it in Germany one year, the Netherlands the next year, maybe branch out even further than that for all the other years, and really make it a bigger event than it is at the moment. So for me, I'm not worried about the pairs. Group stage would be great, but if I had one choice, it would be move it around to a different country every year.
Yeah, I think moving it around would be a really cool move. But personally, I think the group stage would be nice as well, because that would have meant my guys, Team New Zealand, Ben Robin, Warren Parry, would have got more TV time. And that's what I'm here for, because they're the boys. But yeah, I think for me, just on a personal level, I find the World Cup a little bit of a drag after the first round, because I enjoy seeing all the different nations represented. I enjoy seeing different players on the TV to the ones you normally see. But then when it gets to the Saturday and the Sunday, and you're kicking off with best of 7 singles games, and like this year where all 8 seeded teams get through to the quarterfinals, there's an element of it where I sort of think, oh, I'm not as enthusiastic as I might have been. But obviously this year was a little bit different, because I really, really wanted to see Australia win it, same as I wanted to see them win it last year. So there was a narrative to follow, but generally I think a change of format would be nice, because I think there's a lot of potential with the event and for it to be even more engaging than it already is.
Sticking with the World Cup, the next question comes from Squeeze, who says, how long do you think before Rock and Rafferty are the Northern Irish team at the World Cup?
Quite a while. Josh Rock, I think he will be on the verge of that World Cup team sooner rather than later, because he is a remarkably talented player. He really is. I saw him for the first time at the Irish Open weekend last year. I think before that, the first time I'd heard of him was when I spoke to Neil Duff. And Neil said that he'd sort of helped Josh come through the system in Northern Ireland, get into the national team, that sort of thing. And he was the player to watch. And then I saw him at the Irish Open weekend, and he is one of the most naturally gifted players I've ever seen. And that's not, an overstatement or the Guinness talking. I genuinely think he's a remarkably gifted player. And you saw when he first joined the PDC, the first few weekends, he won nothing. He averaged, I think it was like 95 upwards in all 4 games in the first 4 Pro Tours and didn't win anything, or only won 1 game. But then after that, once he started getting the rub of the green a bit more, you're seeing him get to quarterfinals. You saw him get to a semi-final very recently. And I don't think a title is far away. And of course, I know Barry Hearn said recently that he thinks Josh Rock's going to be a top 8 player in the future. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Brendan Dolan and Daryl Gurney, neither of them have had terrific years, but obviously they've got about a 200 grand head start on Josh and a 212 grand head start on Nathan. So it will be a while, but obviously I would say maybe 4 years' time, Rock Rafferty is the team we're going to see. And I'll be a team I'll very much look forward to watching.
Josh Rock can get himself in the top 8. He's probably going to be in that Northern Irish team, isn't he? And it's a long way to get there, isn't it, to get in the top 8? But you look at on a different country, if you like, and I was thinking about this question. It is an interesting one. How long before we see players get in the World Cup or get in contention? And looking at the Ireland team, the Republic of Ireland team, you've got at the moment Willie O'Connor, Steve Lennon. They've been the team for a few years now. Next year, though, as things stand, Keane Barry should be in that Irish team. And you look at the way the rankings are post World Championship, he would be the Irish number 1 in the PDC. So that sort of shows you the time scale you're working with. And it does depend on, with all these things, different factors. And Willie O'Connor, Steve Lennon, they've been in and around that top 40, just outside the top 32 for a few years now. Keane Barry, this is his second year with a tour card, and he has had that big run at the UK Open a few months ago. He has picked up prize money pretty regularly over the last 18 months, and he is pushing up the rankings. The other two, Willie and Steve, we've seen their form, their results dip off a little bit. We've not seen them climb the rankings like they did before. And that's going to be the case with this Northern Irish team, how that changes. Daryl Gurney, Brendan Dolan, they've had the heights of getting to the top 4 for Daryl, winning majors. Brendan getting in the top 16, getting to major finals. They're still in the top 32, but you've got on the other side of things 2 players that have only just got their tour cards. They are still finding their feet a little bit, and yeah, it is going to take a while. I think next year would be too early. 2024, we might see one of them get in. That is dependent on results over the next few years, but yeah, I think that's a fair assessment then. Maybe 2025, 2026, we'll see those 2 involved in the Northern Irish team.
I think sometimes it's interesting. You don't necessarily realise the lack of depth that certain countries have. I think last year, I know there was some suggestion, at least for a period of time, that Gezi might have missed the World Cup last year. And I remember looking at the rankings and realising that the 3rd highest ranked Welshman at that time was Nick Kenny, who was outside the top 64. And that completely baffled me, because I was like, there has to be another Welshman inside the top 64. But essentially, because Gezi and Johnny were so dominant, you just assumed that there would have been another one. But there wasn't. And even now, I think the 3rd highest ranked Welshman now would be Louis Williams, and he's sort of 70-ish in the rankings. So yeah, I think the depth is sometimes misleading because there's so many Englishmen and Dutchmen on the tour. You don't always realise that some of the nations don't have that depth. And if you think this time last year, that Northern Ireland team, it would have been Daryl Gurney, Brendan Dolan, and then quite a long drop down to Mickey Mansell, who eventually dropped off the tour and then won his tour card back.
Yeah, Northern Ireland, definitely a country that we're seeing more depth of players coming through. And sticking with the World Cup again with our next question, Matt Langan, friend of the show, we both know well. Is it just me, or is Damo a significant outlier when it comes to his combination of years on tour and performance under pressure? The guy's looked unshakable for as far as I can remember, and I've been standing him for quite some time. He's going to be a superstar.
I mean, stan is a very American term. But I think we knew that about Matt. I don't know. I know I said earlier on that I came across, I was saying that Simon had carried the World Cup team with Australia, which obviously was a bit harsh on Damo and wasn't necessarily what I meant. But I think there is some truism in what you and I said. He won that World Series, which is his big breakthrough moment. But since then, he's never quite hit the heights that I think people expected him to on TV. But again, you can't be what you can't see. He's got that big win as a tour card holder on TV now, and he hit that winning double. So I don't know. I'm not sure that I think he's a significant outlier, as Matt says, but I would definitely agree with the end sentiment there that now he's got that first win, he's going to go on to achieve an awful lot and head up towards that sort of top echelon of Australian players who've gone overseas and done big things, like Tony David, like Simon Whitlock, like Graham Hunt, who obviously won the World Masters in the 90s, often gets forgotten about, but it's a big achievement at the time. And then, you know, the old school legends of Australian darts like Russell Stewart, Wayne Weaning and Terry O'Day, who sadly passed away last year. But yeah, I think Damo's certainly on the up and up. And we're only going to see more from him and more of him in those big spots in the coming years.
Yeah, I think so too. And I touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about Australia's winning the World Cup and Damon Heta not having that full year on the tour yet because of the pandemic. And this year we are seeing him play a lot more regularly. And maybe if he would have had 2 full years, we'd have seen this happen a little bit earlier. Maybe he would have won a major singles title first before winning the World Cup. Who knows? But I think what we are seeing is a player that is continuing to improve, progress in the PDC, push up the rankings towards the top 16. And if I'm looking at a player going to the first part of what Matt said there, is there anyone else who's been like that? Is he a significant outlier? Well, I think the one that really stands out is Rob Cross. He got the Riley's qualifier spot at the UK Open, then decided to play the Challenge Tour, won the Challenge Tour, got his tour card, and end of the first year on the tour, wins the World Championship. I think that is the gold standard, if you like, for players that do have a lack of experience and years on the tour and are able to produce those big moments, win the big title. So I think Rob Cross, it's going to be hard to top Rob Cross in that respect. But for Damon Heta, yeah, he is still relatively new to the tour and he's embracing everything. And to win the World Cup is a massive achievement for him. And like we were talking about earlier, is he going to be someone that follows on from previous winners of that event like Johnny Clayton and go on a tear for the next year and win singles major titles, get in the Premier League? I certainly think he's going to be a threat going into the rest of the majors for this year. And I'd love to see him in the Premier League. I think it's going to be tough to get in for any player that's not an established player in that top 8 in the world, if you like, because we are only down to 8 players now. But I think if he can have a strong second half of the year, he's going to give himself a great shout at getting in that Premier League. And like I say, it'd be great to see him involved in that.
Him and Nico Kurtz for the Premier League, that's what I say.
He's got a shot, definitely.
I think in terms of, I was trying to think of another example, and the name that came to my mind was Nathan Aspinall, because he's been around for a while. And I know he won his tour card for the first time in 2015, but he didn't really break through properly until about 2018 when he won that Players' Championship. Then he got to the World semi-final. Then he won he won the UK Open, which was, he had that tremendous run to win that UK Open, beat Gezi, beat Rob Cross in the final, hit the 170. And then, he won a World Series later that year. And then when he played at the World Match Play in 2019, I think he debuted in that tournament as a seeded player. And so I think maybe Nathan's another example, maybe, of someone who kind of came from relative obscurity or relatively nowhere in terms of previous achievements to produce consistently good results on TV and look like he was never fazed by the occasion or never nervous in that big spot. But Damo's definitely up there, but maybe isn't an outlier.
The last listener question we've got for you guys, and I'm looking forward to the answer to this one. If you could win any major ranking or non-ranking TV tournament, which would you pick, and where would the World Cup be in your ranking?
So for me, I would say winning the WDF World Championship at Lakeside would be the thing that I would want to do more than anything. I think that would mean more to me than anything else, purely because of that Adams-Nixon final getting me into darts in the first place. I think that building and that tournament has sort of emotional significance for me that I would say puts it above anything else. But if we're talking in purely PDC terms, I would say that, of course, Ali Pali would be top of the tree. I would say probably the World Match Play second, the UK Open third, and then probably the World Cup. Because I think the double-in, double-out format of the World Grand Prix really isn't for me. And then the Players' Championship finals, European Championships are nice, but they don't have the luster of the World Cup. But the World Cup suffers for me because I feel like the format of it could be more than it already is. And of course, it's non-ranking, so it doesn't have quite the same luster as the other ones I mentioned. So probably fourth place for me with the World or the World Match Play number one.
Yeah, I was thinking similar to that, and it probably helps if I do read the listener questions before, because I did write out in big capital letters the Torremolinos Open, but of course it's not a TV tournament, so I've let myself down there on that one. So I'll have to think of some other ones. But yeah, I think the two you mentioned there, the World Championship, the World Match Play, they were on my list. The other one I was going to mention is the Premier League, and I'll explain the picks for these, and purely on a selfish enjoyment factor, I think, because I think between us we'd probably both agree we're never going to win a major TV tournament, but if we were to win one of them, we'd want to win the one where you are going to get the most enjoyment out of it. And the World Championship, of course, that is the biggest title in darts. To win that, despite what any other thing you do in darts, to be a world champion would be pretty special to lift that title on the Ali Pali stage. The World Match Play, that's a tournament which means a lot to me in Blackpool. I love Blackpool, and to have 9 days in Blackpool, having a great time, and to know that you are going to win the title at the end of it, I don't think I'd survive, but I'd have a great time winning the title there. And the Premier League, I mean, to win that, and you're going across the Europe, UK, 16, 17 nights, and if I knew I was going to win the Premier League, I wouldn't bother playing in the Players' Championship events at the weekend, the European Tour events at the weekend. I'd have 16, 17 long weekends across Europe and the UK, play the Premier League on the Thursday, enjoy a bit of culture, a weekend in all those places, Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday, rest for a few days, do it all again for 16, 17 weeks, pick up the title, pick up the check. I'd absolutely love it. So, yeah, any of those three I'd be happy with. World Cup, yeah, I think we'll stick it in fourth place.
Oh, I think you might have sold me on the Premier League there. I think the thought of getting to walk out to regulate 16 Thursdays on the trot, I think would be glowing adulation of the people of the Motor Point Arena and Exeter and Brighton and Germany and Rotterdam and whatever. People enjoy me coming out to a bit of Nate Dogg and Warren G's regulate. I think I'd have a lot of time for that, especially if I knew I was going to win it at the end, because then I could have a bit more fun with my walk on and maybe overexert myself and do what Dirk van Dijvenbode used to do and work so hard on his walk on that the first leg was always a write-off because he was trying to get his breath back. So I think maybe you've sold me a little bit on that one now. I'm not the biggest Premier League fan in the world, but I can appreciate the Beano qualities of it for sure.
Yeah, that would be good times. Well, that's all of our listener questions. That brings us to the end of the show. And first of all, we should say a big thank you to everyone for listening. Big thank you to our guests for joining us. Big thank you to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want some more Dynamite Darts content, dartwolf.tv. Go and give Dartwolf a follow if you're on Twitter. Yeah, we should say a big thank you to you, Andrew. Appreciate you stepping in for Burton this week and being our guest co-host. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we should give you the floor as well. Give a shout out for Inside the WDF. Where can people find you if they want to hear a bit more of you?
Well, thank you for having me on, first of all. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully I've not lowered the tone. If you want to know more about the WDF or learn more about the players who are playing in that circuit, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Inside the WDF. Latest episode came out this week, which featured a really nice chat with Martin Turner, who's been playing darts a long time, was PDC tour card holder 2011, 2013, 2014, and has for his entire career, more or less, been battling quite difficult issues with anxiety, low self-esteem, low self-belief. And he's finally starting to overcome those thanks to a video put together by the PDPA. And he's now playing darts with a new lease of life, up to 14th in the WDF rankings, got to his first final earlier in the month, and it's probably going to be at the World Championship next year. So that was a fun episode. More to come as well. So yeah, podcast on Twitter at Inside the WDF, Facebook as well. And obviously you can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, you've definitely sold me. I'll be having a listen to that later this week. Do go and check it out. It's always a fun listen. And as I say, thanks very much for joining me, Andrew. Thanks everyone again for listening. We'll be back again next week. We'll be looking back at the World Series in the Netherlands. We'll be looking ahead to the Euro Tour. The World Seniors, I think, is back next week. So plenty of darts to look forward to. And as I always say, enjoy the darts.
Bye.